Hello everyone, welcome back to Food Feeds. This is part 2 video of carbohydrates, wherein we are covering the disaccharides as well as the liquid sugar, that is syrups. So if you haven't watched part 1, do watch it. It covers the classification of carbohydrates, monosaccharides, as well as some structural aspects, which will be helpful for you to understand the further concepts. As usual, I tell you to keep a notebook with you so that you can jot down the notes as the video progresses, and it will be helpful for you to have a notes by the end of the video, which will be handy for you for any exams. So let's begin. Disaccharides. So how are they formed? So basically two sugar units, when they join with the help of glycosidic bond or glycosidic linkage, then we get this disaccharides. So here how it happens is, it is formed between the hydroxyl groups are used, that is OH group. So OH group of one monosaccharide will attach with the OH group of second monosaccharide unit. And while this forms, there is also formation of one molecule of water. And this OH group of one monosaccharide unit is from the anomeric carbon end, and one more will be from non-anomeric carbon end. So what are anomeric carbon? You have to watch the part 1 where it is detailed explanation is given. And also, depending on where this glycosidic bond is formed, it is termed as alpha and beta. So this is beta. That is also based on the anomeric carbon only. So do watch it, watch the first video to understand how we name this alpha, beta, and this number is given. So 1,4, like at what point is the linkage? So that is detailed explanation in part 1. So basically disaccharides are made from two monosaccharide units, and each of these hydroxyl groups are joined, and there is a one molecule of water formed during this. And majorly, it is formed with a glycosidic linkage. So let's start with maltose, which is a disaccharide. And this is just a format which even you can use for making notes, which will be easy to understand as well as it's quick to learn if you make this kind of notes. So I have just given a format where you can include the structure of maltose and then how they are formed, their source, and exact linkage point, which is also a major part of MCQs, and whether they are reducing sugar or non-reducing sugar, which is also which is also a part of this MCQ questions. So basically, this maltose is formed when there is a partial hydrolysis of starch, and they are naturally found in malt beverages like beer and malt liqueurs. And maltose is also added as an ingredient in variety of foods. So maltose, what is the individual units? So both individual units are glucose. Glucose together when there is a linkage between the first carbon and the fourth carbon. So the major linkage point is alpha 1,4 glycosidic bond. And also here, the major thing during the hydrolysis of maltose, which yields two sugar units, that particular enzyme will also just focus on, it will attack only the alpha linkage. So that is why we get the hydrolysis of maltose into two sugar units. So maltose is a reducing sugar because, as you know, here the reason is given, that is C1 carbon here. It has an anomeric carbon of the glucose unit on the right side. So it is, and that carbon is available for reaction. So hence it is the reducing sugar. Whenever the end part is not available for the reaction, then it is termed to be non-reducing sugar. So here, if you can see, it is available for reaction. So this OH. So hence it is a reducing sugar. So maltose is made of two glucose units, and the linkage is at alpha 1,4, and it is also a reducing sugar. So this is the basic thing you should know about maltose. Moving on to the next one. This is the only sugar which is available in milk and milk products. And here the one monosaccharide unit is galactose and one more is glucose. So glucose plus galactose will form lactose. And here the linkage is between 1,4, that is beta 1,4 linkage is formed, which you can see here in the image. So carbon 1 attached with carbon 4, and why beta is named you can know from part 1 video. And lactose is also a reducing sugar. As you can see here, there is a availability of OH group. Sucrose is also called as cane sugar or beet sugar, even the table sugar. So this is the natural sweetener used. And the two sugar units here are, one is fructose and one more is glucose. The bond is very worth watching because here, usually, as I said, when there is a formation of disaccharide units, only one part of OH group, one monosaccharide unit with OH group of anomeric carbon will attach with non-anomeric end of other OH group of the monosaccharide. But in terms of the sucrose, the attachment will be made between these two, where both are the anomeric carbon and there is no availability of OH itself. And because there is no availability of free reaction unit, this sucrose is termed to be non-reducing sugar because there is no end which is freely available for reaction or reducing. So this is a non-reducing sugar, and both the linkage is formed at the anomeric carbon. And hence, this is a unique structure formed in the disaccharides. This is the difference between other disaccharide units and the sucrose unit. And they are commonly called as cane sugar, beet sugar, and it is a table sugar. So the next one is trehalose, which is usually found in the bacteria, yeast, fungi, mushrooms, shrimp, and plants. And it is very less available in the human diet. It also possesses different physical and chemical properties compared to other sugars. And one of the important application of this trehalose is it is used as an additive in most of the processed food in Japan and other countries because it acts as a stabilizer, and it also helps in protecting against the loss of moisture. So the major application for this is its use as an additive, and it is also GRAS certified, that is generally recognized as safe. And whenever we consume this trehalose, it is digested slowly and it releases low glycemic response, which is because it is also used in the treatment of metabolic diseases. And here the bond is between the carbon 1 of both sides. And hence it is an alpha 1,1 bond in case of trehalose. And hence it is a non-reducing sugar as well. So because as you can see in the image, there is no OH bond available for the reaction, and hence it is termed as non-reducing sugar. So before moving on to the syrups, so let's summarize what we learned. So basically maltose, it is made from two glucose units, and the linkage is between alpha 1,4 glycosidic bond, and it is a reducing sugar because lactose is also a reducing sugar because for it also it is available, OH bond is available for the reaction, and it is usually found in milk and milk products. Lactose is formed by the linkage between galactose and glucose unit. Sucrose, which is also known as cane sugar, beet sugar, or table sugar, it is a natural sweetener, and the linkage between the fructose and glucose will form the sucrose unit, and Sucrose and Trehalose are the non-reducing sugars. And Trehalose is also has a major application as a food additive, and it is also used in the treatment of metabolic diseases. So moving on to sugar syrups. So basically, what are syrups? So syrup is a viscous solution of sugar which is dissolved in water, isn't it? Like when we even make in home, we just dissolve the sugar in the water and boil it. So that is nothing but the sugar syrup. And this concentration of sugar, if it is high, it forms the viscous fluid, right? But we term a particular solution as syrup only when the concentration is high enough to create the viscosity, but it is not high enough to cause crystallization. So if it's getting crystallization, then it is not a syrup. So to be a syrup, the concentration should be high enough, uh, such as honey, where the viscosity is high, but it is not in a state of crystallizing itself. So basically how these syrups are made. So one is the natural form, which is available in nature, like the native state of honey. And one more is by reducing the water content in case of natural juices. So for example, maple sap. For here, the water content is reduced to get the maple sugar. And the third process is the enzymatic process, which we use for commercial production of these syrups. So for example, here you can give the example of corn syrup, which is done with the use of enzymes. And here the specific type and the proportion of sugars in syrups will widely differ in terms of for what we require, whether there's a production of food or whether it's for some other purpose. So depending upon that, the source and the type of the process that is applied to it, based on that, the composition as well as the taste will differ. The source and the purpose of the sugar will also contribute in the flavor of a particular syrup and their appearance and including their functional properties. So let's first discuss about the honey. So honey, as you know, it's a natural syrup which is made by the bees. And the bees usually collect the sugar from the floral nectar of the plants, and then it gives the honey a varieties of their distinctive flavor and the color. And honey can be consumed directly from the beehive as well. And coming to molasses, it's a byproduct of the table sugar, that is sucrose. Whenever there is a refining process of sugar, then the byproduct formed is the molasses. And this is a viscous liquid which remains after the sugar or the sucrose crystals are formed and they are removed from the sugarcane or sugar beets. Sometimes this molasses can taste bitter because of the high mineral content which is present in that. And here you can see the image. This is the molasses and this is also a molasses. So the next one is maple syrup. And this is extracted from the tree, that is maple tree. Here you can see the leaves of that. So usually the sap which is taken from this maple tree, it is high in water. So we need to boil that sap till a necessary evaporation temperature so that we get a concentrated form of the sugar. And it takes almost 40 liters of sap to should be taken in order to get 1 liter of maple syrup. So the next one is the agave syrup, which is rich in the polysaccharide called fructans. And here, this juice, which is obtained from this plant, they are treated with a dilute acid or enzyme or even heat in order to break down these fructans, and they turn these fructans into fructose. And once this juice gets concentrated, and the resulting syrup will be marketed as an agave syrup. So coming to the corn syrup, which has a major application in the food industry. Usually it is used for making candies, and it is also known as glucose syrup. Basically, they are made by dissolving the cornstarch in water. Along with that, there is an addition of enzymes in order to hydrolyze the glycosidic bonds, because these enzymes will mainly act upon these glucose units to destruct the bonds. And this is one of the reasons why even the confectionaries, like any biscuit products or any sugar based candies, chocolates, they prefer the glucose syrup, that is the corn syrup, more than the table sugar, that is sucrose, because this glucose will resist the crystallization process. So that is one of the reason why the confectionaries prefer glucose syrups over the table sugar, because of the crystallization, because the glucose resist the crystallization process, which will help in the processing in commercial industries for various products. The next is high fructose corn syrup, which is actually formed during the corn syrup production, which is the second step, wherein they add this enzyme which will uh, convert this glucose molecules into fructose. For example, high fructose corn syrup 42, which represents the 42% of the glucose is converted to fructose. So this number is just the percent of how much the glucose has been converted to fructose. So this HFSC, which is a short form for high fructose corn syrup, this 42% is used for making the cereals and baked goods, whereas 55% of this converted glucose molecules to fructose, it is used for soft drinks. So if you see this table, they have given different sugar levels in a particular syrup. So honey, how much fructose, glucose, sucrose and water it contains. So usually we won't be able to remember these values, right? So you can just study these table in terms of comparison, so that you remember what exactly they want to tell in a particular tables. So here if you see, there is a zero value. So in corn syrup, usually there is no fructose. So there is no fructose in corn syrup. And here if you see, there is no sucrose present in case of agave syrup, corn syrup and high fructose corn syrup. The least water content is present in honey, which is definitely understandable, because this is one of the reason also why honey is not spoiled for years. And sucrose is highest in case of maple syrup, and here see almost it's same. The water content is same in case of all these sugarcane, molasses, agave syrup, corn syrup, and high fructose corn syrup. So basically, you can just check for what is absent and what is the highest point, highest value of individual sugar units. So that was all about the disaccharides and the sugar syrup. So basically, in disaccharides, you should know which two monosaccharide units form the particular disaccharide, where exactly is the linkage formed, whether they are reducing or non-reducing sugar, and what is the source of each disaccharide units. And also in case of syrups, usually they ask the sources, and also sometimes they ask the comparison between which is much more sweeter than a particular sugar. So usually sucrose is taken as a standard to measure the sweetness of other sweets, other sugar units. So you can learn it that way. So upcoming part will cover the complex carbohydrate. So if you like the content, do subscribe the channel if you haven't yet, and hit the bell icon so that you will get an update whenever there is a new video uploaded on this channel. So see you in the next video. Thank you.